Hello book lover, welcome to my channel. My name is Kay if you're new here, and today we're going to talk about all of the Christian fiction books that I read in the month of May. So I need to just be totally honest with you guys before I even jump into this video to tell you that I am struggling to keep up with written reviews. If you watched my last video where I did a little bit of a life update, we have just had so much crazy stuff happening that finding the time not only to sit down and film and edit these videos, which takes me quite a bit of time, on top of uploading it and doing all the back end stuff that goes along with that, writing reviews has definitely been something that has hit the back burner for me. And so I know a lot of people like going onto Goodreads to see trigger warnings and that kind of stuff, and that's something that I really like to do, but I'm just in a season right now where I feel like I just can't keep up with sitting down and writing an individual review for every single book on top of the YouTube. So for right now, I'm going to try not to like pressure myself into that. Now I know trigger warnings and content warnings are a pretty big deal to some people. That's something that I definitely want to be sensitive to, but I'm also getting to this point where I feel like I can't keep track of every single trigger warning that might be triggering to somebody. I know a lot of you appreciate when I include those in the description box within my reviews also, but I just want to apologize and say I am sorry. It's just too much for me to keep up with right now. So my reviews at the present moment I feel like are just going to solely be my YouTube videos reading wrap-ups where I actually can give you reviews of books. With that being said, I'm human, so I don't know that I'm going to be able to mention every single hard topic or trigger warning in a book. I will try my best, but if you are super sensitive to any kind of content in particular, please do your own research. I am one woman and I can only do so much. So I just want to thank you guys for the grace that you have given me in this season of changing my uploading schedule and all of that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, I don't want to feel pressure behind doing the book review stuff, behind doing YouTube, because this is something that I genuinely enjoy. I love making the videos, I love reading, and I don't want to turn it into something that is a job. Putting pressure on myself to keep up with all of the content warnings and writing reviews and stuff is making it feel like a job to me right now. So I just need to press pause on a couple things and just do the part that I can do and enjoy, and that's just filming these videos for you guys and getting them up. My whole goal for this channel is to encourage Christians to be mindful of the content they're consuming by giving you guys clean and Christian fiction book recommendations. With all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the video. And again, I thank you so much and I appreciate you and your support. So normally I jump into first the nonfiction book or Bible studies that I completed in a month, but this past month, again, so crazy, I did not end up reading my nonfiction pick, so I'm just going to save that for another month to read. But Bible study wise, I'm so excited to say I finally finished my verse by verse Bible study through the Psalms. So I have read every single psalm and looked into the context of when they were written, who wrote them, why they wrote them, all that kind of stuff. And honestly, I feel like I can pat myself on the back for it now. I truly just love God's word and his willingness to handle all of our emotions. He preserved all of these songs, psalms, and poems for us. Reading through this book has just been so encouraging for me, uplifting, and it's also let me know that I am just not alone, that my God is with me no matter where I am at in life, and that he is the only thing that matters. I'm just so happy to say that was my May study. I finally finished going through the Psalms, which took me several months, but I feel so accomplished, but also I just feel like I've grown closer in my openness and willingness to have a very honest and real relationship with God when I'm struggling, when I'm happy, and all of those things. So the first book that I actually read in the month of May was Love and Memories by Mandy Blake. This is the fourth book in her Love in Blackwater series. I do recommend reading this series in order. The first book is called Love in the Storm. This is an interconnected series where you are following people who live in this small town and all of their circles end up mixing or getting intertwined somehow. This book, Love in Memories, was following Travis Monroe, a paramedic, and Isabella Young, a woman who shows up in Blackwater and she immediately gets hit by a car and has amnesia. In Mandy's Blake's books, y'all, I just describe her as being the Christian soap opera queen, and I mean that as like the highest compliment. I love her books so much. They keep me turning pages. They are super quick reads for me, but there is just so much depth in these books. This series in particular is following Christians who come to Christ later in life, and I really love that as somebody who didn't fully grasp and come to Christ until I was 18 years old. So I have just loved following these characters. This one, there was some stuff that came out of left field that I did not see coming, but it just, this is one of those books where everything is just like, this is crazy! What is happening right now? It was so good. I think I gave this one a 4.5 stars because there was a scene in this book where there was the abuse of a pregnant woman, and that was just kind of really hard for me to stomach. I would not say her books are graphic, but I would say they are kind of like gritty in the way that there is some really dark stuff in them, but the light and redemption arcs that she puts in her books, the faith content is just so incredibly good and her characters feel so real. The situations are wild, but her characters feel real and relatable, and I love them so much. Love in Memories, I highly recommend the Love in Blackwater series. Not every book has been a full 5 stars for me so far, but several of them have been. They're just page turners. They are good books that if you need a palate cleanser, if you just want to try something new, I highly recommend Miss Mandy Blake. And just shout out to book lover Amanda for getting me onto Mandy Blake, because I have been just having the best time reading her books. The next book I read on my Kindle. I ended up reading a buddy read with my friend Caitri from Book Nerd Caitri called Rain, Rain, Run Away. This book was good, but it is not what I expected. I was expecting this book to be a more light and fluffy rom-com type of book, but it definitely was not that. There were a couple moments that made me laugh, but it read way more just like contemporary romance. But in this book, I cannot remember the character. You're following Rain and some guy. And anyway, they were in love in the past. Something happened that made Rain run away. Rain has to come back to her hometown because a tragedy ends up striking. She is forced to face her lost love when she comes back, along with a bunch of other realities. This is a huge family drama. Tons and tons of family drama. The back of the book sells it to you kind of as this girl comes back from the big city to her small town. All of a sudden, she is now managing the renovations on a house that her ex-lover is running. It's kind of like this forced proximity type of thing, and I was just expecting it to be super duper funny, but it really wasn't. There were a few things that made me laugh, but this was a huge story just about grief, I would say, and facing the things that you've done wrong. I feel like this book was probably like a 3-star book to me. There was a lot that I really enjoyed. Like, it kept me turning pages because I wanted to know what happened, like why these two people broke up in the past, why they stopped being together. I really just wanted to know why what happened. When I got to that part, I was a little bit underwhelmed and I still had some questions. And then there was just some content talking about how Rain was feeling grief from somebody, and then there was this part like this hummingbird came and flew in front of her, and her family member that passed away loved hummingbirds, and it became this whole thing about every time she saw a hummingbird, she was pretty sure that was a sign from her loved one from heaven to let her know she was okay. And while I agree that those things can be really comforting, I just don't know how actually scripturally accurate it is that past loved ones can send people signs. I honestly just haven't done research on that, but also I personally haven't seen it in scripture, and if it is in scripture, it's something that I've totally like gleaned over and didn't pay too much attention to. So there was just like a lot of talk about like after the loved one passed away, sending her signs, and so that was just something I was like, yeah, I don't know. how scripturally accurate that was. So that was just something that every time it was mentioned, it just kind of threw me off a little bit. But it was a solid story. It wasn't my #1 favorite story. I do think I would like to continue the series to see what other characters it ends up following, because I know there's a second book that takes place around Christmas time. So I think that would be a fun one to read. But this book, it had a lot of abuse in it. Abuse to teenage children. So just know that going into this book, there is heavy themes on abuse. And that was a little bit hard for me to read. I really appreciated that this was a story that was told, because the things that happened in this story are things that happen to people in real life. And I just feel like there's not a lot of like spotlight or like on these types of hard topics. I don't know if any of that made sense. It was a really good story. I just had a few things that I was like, meh, I don't know, but I think the writing was amazing. I think it was a great debut novel. So that was Rain, Rain, Run Away by India Tungate. The next book that I read was Stealing the Preacher by Karen Whittemire. This is book 2 in the Archer Brothers series by her. I don't feel like you need to read Short Straw Bride first, but I'm glad I did, because when they started talking about the other characters, I knew who they were talking about. So in this book, you were following Crockett, and it is his dream to be a pastor. He ends up leaving his family for his dream opportunity to be a pastor. When he is on his way to become a pastor, the train that he is on ends up getting robbed and he is kidnapped. Hence the name Stealing the Preacher. I don't want to give too much away past that. That is just like in the first couple chapters, but this book is so stinking laugh out loud hilarious. I will say though, skip the audiobook. Honestly, I've pre-listened to like a few Karen Whittemire audiobooks just to get a vibe for it, and I'm not a fan of the old narrators of her last one, so I think her books are best to be physically read if you can. I just personally did not really like the voice that the narrator used when she was speaking for Joanna and for some of the other people. It just came across really whiny, if that makes sense. I would recommend physically reading this if you are going to read it. But the romance in this book, it was so cute. So cute. Oh my goodness. Like, this might be one of my favorite romance lines between a couple, but then there is also an amazing redemption arc for Joanna's dad, and Joanna ends up, see, I don't want to give anything away. What can I say? I feel like I can't say too much because I really want you to go into this and not know too much. Just know this is a 5-star book for me. It is so good. There were a few like hymn songs woven into it, which I really appreciated also, so that was just a fun touch to this. Karen Whittemire, she's so funny, so witty, but her faith content is so good. So Stealing the Preacher, please, if you haven't read Short Straw Bride or Stealing the Preacher, you need to get onto it because it's just so good. The next book that I read, this is actually 2 books. These were birthday gifts from my sweet friend Caitri, and they just came at the perfect time. I was really starting to get into a slump of I don't know what to read, life is crazy. I just found out Zion needed surgery and, you know, all this kind of stuff, and I was like, I just need something different. And then these came in the mail from Caitri, and it was everything that I needed. The Secrets of Avigdor by Cheney Hobson in the Legends of Nesher. I have 100 pages left of the Legends of Nesher, so I'm not finished with it yet. I'm just going to talk about book 1, The Secrets of Avigdor, because this is also the sequel, so I don't want to give anything away. What is The Secrets of Avigdor, you might be wondering? This is everything that I have never read before because it's things that I'm usually, like, if I hear these phrases, I'm just not interested. This is pirates. I don't know why, but I've never been interested in pirates. I did like Pirates of the Caribbean as a kid, but this is pirates. Later in the book, I mean, you can see it here, you get dinosaurs. This is what I equate to, if you've seen Journey to the Center of the Earth movie, the sequel, The Mysterious Island. This is The Mysterious Island, but make it Christian romantasy. So we've got pirates, dinosaurs, The Mysterious Island, Christian romantasy. Have I sold it to you? Because it is so good, you guys. This book kept me turning pages. I think I read this first one in like 4 days, and poor Caitri, I don't think she realized the can of worms that she opened by sending this to me, because I was sending her so many updates. as I was reading this book. It was so incredibly good. This is a Christian indie author, so I would highly encourage you to support her. I know that this book is on Kindle Unlimited, and so is the sequel. It's just so good, you guys. Like, it's so good. One thing I will note, just because I know some people are pretty picky, she is an indie author, and there were a few places where I noticed not like word typos or misspellings, but just place where like there was just like a misplaced comma or period or a quotation mark was backward or something like that. I always give indie authors grace when it comes to editing because they don't have a whole team behind them doing all of the editing for them. I just want to say that because I don't want somebody to go into this and be like, well, there's a typo here and a typo there. Like, it is so minor. It doesn't take away from the story, but it was something I noticed, so I just want to mention it to you. This was like a 6-star book for me. And maybe it's one of those things too. It's just exactly what I needed. I needed something that was a breath of fresh air. It was so good. Like, so good, you guys. Do not sleep on The Secrets of Avigdor. The next book that I read was Miss Beth Bettencourt by Eva Marie Everson. Eva herself actually sent me this book for review, so thank you so much if you're watching this, Eva. I so appreciate it. When I read the back of this book, I had so many questions. So you have Miss Beth. Her family is away on vacation. She's going to bed one night and she hears a man snoring in her guest room. And you immediately have questions. Like, who is this man? Why is he there? But Eva also has a sister who had passed away after betraying her by taking off with Beth's fiance and ended up marrying him. So there's a lot of hurt and just things like that in this book. I will say this book, it's kind of marketed as a romance, and while there is like a romance thread through there, I feel like this was way stronger on like the women's fiction side of things. It was like the plot line was Beth kind of going through, it was like a slice of life type of book is how I would explain it. So you're following Beth as she's like figuring out all of these different things, and the guy, what was his name? David Patrick Martin, he kind of ends up sticking around pretty early on in the book, starts to uncover and unravel some of Beth's past. So it's kind of got these mystery vibes in it. So I loved the characters in this book. They felt very real. The writing itself is super beautiful, super great storytelling. And then the dialogue was something that I noticed between the characters, and maybe that's because like I would love to write a book, but when I was reading through the dialogue, I was like, this is good dialogue. This seems like things people would actually say, how they would actually approach each other. And so that was one thing that it might be super random, but it was great dialogue. There were a few things in this book that personally I was just like a little uncomfortable and wary with. The ring that her twin sister took off with was a moonstone, and I am all for crystals and stones being things that God created and they're beautiful, but it kind of took the approach, and there was a scene where her and her sister, they were like 10-year-old girls, had the moonstone, they were saying incantations under the moonlight, and if they put it in their mouth they could see the future type of thing. And it was like a thing where kids were make-believe playing, but then the future thing actually ends up happening. There were a few other old wives' tales about like painting the ceiling a certain color so spirits couldn't come through, and then this other story about this ghost that like the howling of the wind is like a woman who lost her husband and she's dead and looking for her husband or her lost love or something like that. I don't know, there was just some stuff in it which it might have just been like a historical accurate time thing. Maybe in this area these were old wives' tales and things that were told, but none of those ideas were challenged from a biblical point of view. They also weren't looked at in a way of like poking fun. Like, I'm okay with, maybe this is bad, but if a Christian book pokes fun at some of those things, like, I'm okay with it. But it kind of just was like, oh, okay, like this is just what it is. This is just what people think. And it just kind of left it at that. So I don't know, those types of things I just didn't really like. And then I felt like all of my questions from the back of the book were answered by the 50% mark. So I just didn't really know where the story was going after that. And so it lost a lot of the momentum for me. But regardless, it was a good story. I am glad I read it. I really look up to Eva's writing and her dialogue and that kind of stuff. It was just, there were some minor like plot things things that just threw me off. So I don't even remember where I left off rating this. Maybe I gave it a 3-star. It was good, but just not my favorite Christian fiction book. I just wanted to let y'all know just some of the things that I just was a little wary of, just so you know going into it, so you're not like, whoa, what is this book? The final book that I finished in May was The King's Scrolls by J.L. Knight. This is the second book in the Ilion Chronicles series. I don't want to go too into detail about what this book is about because obviously I don't want to give spoilers because it is the sequel in a series. I will say there are dragons. That was one thing I've been so curious about. I thought there were dragons in this world, and there are dragons pretty early on in the second book, so that was a lot of fun. Now the dragons don't talk, and I wish they talked because I love a good grumpy talking dragon. I don't know what it is about it. This is like a non-magic Christian fantasy world. The faith content in this book was super duper good. It answered a lot of questions about like, why do bad things happen to good people if God is a good God? The question of the purpose of pain, that type of thing. So I really, really loved the messages that went through this book. I gave this one a 4-star because it was just a little slower for me, and it might have just been a mood thing, but all in all, it was a really good book. We got introduced to new characters and I really enjoyed them, and again, the faith content was just so incredibly good in this book. If you have not started the Ilion Chronicles, the first book is called Resistance by J.L. Knight, and it is just so beautiful. I can't wait to continue this with Samira's Peril, so we'll see when I get to it. I am loving this series. So that is all of the books that I ended up reading in the month of May, and every single one of them were Christian fiction, and I am just loving all of the Christian fiction books that I've been reading lately. If you made it this far in the video, leave me in the comment section the emoji of a flower, because just looking outside my window right now, there are just flowers that are blooming and I love it so much. Please also let me know what was your favorite read in the month of May. As always, thank you so much for watching my channel, for all of the love and support. I appreciate you guys so much, and I'm so glad that this is something that the Lord has put in my path to do. Again, thank you also for all of the grace when it comes to the reviews and stuff. Hopefully I did an okay job in this video kind of mentioning the more major trigger warnings, and hopefully they weren't spoilery. I don't feel like any of them were because they were pretty big themes or things that I feel like people do need to know if they do read a certain book. All in all, I had a really good reading month with lots of good Christian fiction. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!